Marta ladled the last of the potato soup into a chipped bowl and slid it across the counter to a shivering boy who had no coin to pay. She never asked his name. She never expected to see him again. That was 20 winters ago, in a drafty basement kitchen where the pipes rattled and the bread was always a day old. She forgot the boy the way you forget a snowflake that melts on your sleeve. But the boy did not forget her. And somewhere across those 20 years, a debt no one wrote down began quietly gathering interest, waiting for the exact week Marta would need it most. She had no idea a single free bowl of soup would one day decide whether her life's work survived or vanished. Marta ran the Fenwick Street meal house, though ran was a generous word for a woman who did everything herself. She cooked. She cleaned. She counted the pennies that never quite added up. Every morning she unlocked a dented steel door and greeted the same weary faces. The day laborers, the widowers, the folks the city had quietly given up on. She learned their orders and their sorrows. "Extra broth for you, Sam. Your cough sounds worse today." Her voice was soft, unhurried, the kind that made people sit up straighter. She never rushed a single person out. Kindness, she believed, was not a transaction. You gave it freely, or you did not give it at all. She had lived that belief for 30 years, never once expecting the ledger to balance. But the ledger, the real one, was drowning her. Fenwick Street sat on land a developer named Trevor Cade suddenly wanted very badly. He arrived one gray Tuesday in a coat that cost more than Marta's monthly budget, and he did not bother to lower his voice. "This dump is an eyesore," he announced to his assistant. "Charity's cute, but it doesn't pay taxes. I want the lease terminated by month's end." Marta stood by the pot, apron dusted with flour, and simply looked at him. "People eat here," she said quietly. "Every day." Trevor laughed. "People can eat somewhere else. Sentiment doesn't build condos, lady. Enjoy your last few weeks." He swept out, leaving the door swinging. Marta turned back to the stove, though her hands trembled just slightly against the warm steel. That night she did the math she'd been avoiding. The building's owner had died, and the estate was selling to the highest bidder, which meant Trevor Cade. Unless Marta could match an impossible price in 30 days, the mealhouse was finished. She sat alone under a single hanging bulb, the same bulb that had buzzed there for decades, and she let herself feel afraid for the first time in years. Then she did what she always did. She wiped the counters. She soaked the beans for morning. She reminded herself that worry never fed anyone. What she did not know was that miles away, in a glass tower she'd never enter, a man was staring at a photograph of a chipped soup bowl he had kept for 20 years, and wondering how to repay a woman whose name he'd finally learned. The next morning, a young man in a plain jacket came in and asked for a bowl. Marta served him with the same warmth she gave everyone. No questions asked. He sat in the corner, watching how she moved, how she called each guest by name, how she slipped an extra roll to a mother with 2 kids and pretended not to. He came back the next day, and the next. He said his name was Daniel. He washed a few dishes without being asked. When Marta protested, he only smiled. "You look like you could use the hands," he said gently. She let him stay. There was something familiar in his quiet, she thought, but she was too tired to place it and too kind to pry. Daniel noticed everything. He noticed the eviction notice taped inside the cupboard where the guests couldn't see it. He noticed Marta stretching 1 pot of stew into 40 servings. He noticed she ate last and least. One afternoon he asked carefully, "What happens to all these people if this place closes?" Marta didn't dodge the question. "They go hungry," she said simply. "Some of them go worse than hungry. She stirred the pot. But I've been broke before. Being broke never stopped me from being useful. Daniel wrote nothing down, but he remembered every word. Here is the thing about quiet people who spend their lives giving. They rarely notice when someone finally starts paying attention. Marta had been seen. She just didn't know it yet. On the 11th day, Trevor Cade returned, this time with a photographer and a smug little grin. "Getting my before pictures," he crowed, gesturing at the peeling walls. "The after is going to be glorious. Try to smile for the camera, soup lady." A few guests bristled, but Marta raised a calming hand. "You are welcome to eat while you're here," she offered. "No one leaves my kitchen hungry. Not even you." Trevor snorted. "I don't eat charity." He knocked a bowl off the counter, and it shattered on the floor. The room went still. Daniel in the corner slowly set down his rag. He looked at the broken bowl a long moment, then at Trevor, then at Marta, and something in his calm expression shifted into resolve. That evening, after the guests had gone, Daniel finally told her the truth. 20 winters ago, he began, a boy came in here half frozen. No money. No family that wanted him. A woman gave him soup and didn't make him feel like garbage for needing it. Marta's spoon paused. "That boy," Daniel said softly, "went into foster care that week with one warm memory to hold on to. It got him through. He grew up. He built something." He looked around the humble room. "I've spent 2 years searching for the kitchen from that memory. Last month I found it, and I found out it was about to be torn down." Marta lowered herself onto a stool, her eyes wide. "Daniel, who are you?" "I run a foundation now," he said. "We fund community kitchens across 4 states. I've served on charity boards. I've written checks I never imagined a foster kid could write." He smiled, gentle and steady. "But I never once told anyone why. I never told them about the soup. Because I was waiting, until I could find the woman who made it." Marta pressed a hand to her mouth. "You don't owe me anything," she whispered. "It was one bowl." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "It was the first time in my life someone treated me like I mattered. That is not one bowl. That is everything." Outside, snow began to fall. The same soft, patient snow that had fallen the night a freezing boy first stumbled through her door. But Daniel didn't just write a check. He'd learned something in his years of giving, and he shared it with her that night. "The mistake most donors make," he said, "is they rescue a place once, then walk away, and it dies again the moment they stop looking. Real kindness isn't a rescue. It's a root." So instead of simply buying the building, he set up a permanent endowment, a trust that would fund Fenwick Street forever, with Marta and her guests on the board that governed it. "You'll never be one bad month from closing again," he told her. "And no man in an expensive coat will ever get to decide whether these people eat." Marta wept, quietly, the way she did everything, and for once, someone was there to hand her the napkin. Trevor Cade discovered the change 3 days later, when his lawyer called with a strained voice. The building was no longer for sale. It had been purchased outright, at a price Trevor couldn't hope to match, by a foundation with more resources than his entire firm. He stormed into the mealhouse one final time, red-faced. "Who did this? Who bought out from under me?" Daniel stepped out from the kitchen, still wearing Marta's spare apron, sleeves rolled up. "I did," he said calmly. "You knocked over a bowl of soup last week. Turns out 20 years ago, a bowl of soup from this exact counter saved my life." Trevor stared. You're the developer everyone's been trying to—" "I was busy," Daniel said, "washing dishes." Trevor left without another word, his photographer trailing awkwardly behind. There would be no condos on Fenwick Street. There would only be soup and warmth, and a battered steel door that opened every morning to the people the city forgot. Word spread, the way good stories do. Volunteers arrived. Donations followed. Not for Trevor's glossy tower, but for a chipped bowl kitchen run by a woman who'd never asked for anything. Marta expanded into the empty storefront next door. She hired 2 of her longtime guests to cook alongside her. And every winter, on the coldest night, she left the light burning late and set an extra bowl on the counter, just in case another freezing stranger needed to be reminded that they mattered. Here is the lesson Marta carried, and the one Daniel proved with 20 years of silence. Kindness is never wasted, even when it seems to vanish the instant you give it. You may never see where it lands. You may never learn the name of the boy you fed, or the life your small mercy quietly held together in the dark. But the world keeps a ledger deeper than money, and sometimes decades later it pays you back exactly when you've forgotten you were ever owed. Marta didn't help that boy to be repaid. That's precisely why the repayment came. The people who give without counting are the ones the universe eventually counts twice, and a single bowl of soup, offered freely on a freezing night, turned out to be the wisest investment either of them ever made. If this story warmed something in you, take a moment before you go. Somewhere in your own past there's a small kindness you've long forgotten, and somewhere ahead of you, one you haven't given yet. Both matter more than you know. That's the whole reason this channel exists. Quiet people, overlooked mercies and justice that arrives gently but never fails to arrive. If you believe kindness always finds its way home, subscribe to Quiet Justice and ring the bell so the next story reaches you the moment it's ready. Leave a comment telling us about a stranger who once helped you when you had nothing. We read every single one, and we share the best in future videos. Your story might be the soup someone else needs tonight. Stay warm out there, and stay kind. It always comes back around.